All right, good morning. Okay, I'm close enough. So I'm just going to highlight a couple things on the by the numbers this time. We know it's been a very dry year, and yesterday the State Water Project gave their initial allocations of water, which is 5% of their Table A, which turns out to be about 200 or so acre feet, 200,000 acre feet, not 200, that'd be really low, but 200,000 is also really low. So that will change throughout the year, but it's a very low beginning. The only other time I looked up past ones in the past 15 or so years, and the only other time it's been 5% was 2010. So that's fun. Another one is the fall midwater trawl smelt abundance. This is September, October, so the midwater trawl is still going on. And so this will also change, but this gives you a preliminary idea of how well smelt is doing. And this was very low abundance, even for the recent years with the what they call the pelagic organism decline regime. And this number is factored into is how they calculate the take limits for the state and the pumping plants. And also, just a little highlight, this year there is, as of now, 11.36% of the California area is under extreme drought. And this is up from last year, which was 1.14%. So that's not good. We're here in the Delta, we're only in a severe drought. The extreme drought is in the San Luis Obispo area. And so if you can think, we're doing pretty bad for water. We're hard for water here, so they're pretty bad down there. And then the last thing would be sort of an update. Last time we gave you the Stanislaus River salmon passage, and this was doing really well, and it is still doing really well, the Tuolumne as well. So salmon are doing pretty good in the San Joaquin Basin this year. And I think that's the funnest parts, or the most interesting ones.
I had one question, Emily, on the choice of the dots for the percentages. So on the salmon passage, is it above 100%?
Oh, they're above 200%. Actually, both of those for the averages.
So let's put another dot that's
average.
Science. We always want more categories, but I would say another dot that's like, above.
Yeah,
well
that came
above
up last time. I said maybe I'll put little stars around it, but it's not.
Emily, were there any questions? And do you like this new format now with the color coding?
I'd like to see more green dots in the future.
Yeah. This was a very red one this year, or this month.
Actually, one of the things we teach in modeling that's very easily done, Randy, you just change the legend.
The printer will eventually run out of red ink.
Peter, what's new with the science plan?
Yeah. Well, gosh, there's a lot of things going into that. So where we are, even though the Council had received and accepted the science plan, there were some specifics, if you go back, that requesting a few modifications to the wording and clarification. And I'm sure the Council would be okay if there are grammatical errors in there that we didn't pick up, John. We just want it to read well. So that's coming out very shortly. We're also beginning to look at the implementation of many of the key areas, the putting together the Science Steering Committee, planning for the Science Action Agenda. What I should have said, the purpose of at the State of the Estuary Conference of that panel, the organizers very kindly gave us a big chunk on one of the afternoons. And the purpose of that, Raina facilitated a session with many of the key agency folks on what the Science Action Agenda should look like, how we begin to put that together. And it was right at the end of the conference, and the room was absolutely packed. There were people standing around the edges. So I think it's just indicative of the incredible interest that there is in the science plan. And as I think I mentioned to the council before, this was quite extraordinary. People were donating time to put it together. So the science community really, really care about this. So we're going to be moving ahead with the interim science action agenda. If you recall, we heard from Tracy and their experiences in Puget Sound, what we've heard about the Great Lakes and places like that. It's a big effort to put together. So we've got this process for developing the interim science action agenda. We're also moving ahead with the planning for the summits that are outlined in the science plan. We want to continue the dialogue. A lot of interest in those various topics. And the last part is just internally within the Delta Science program right now. A lot is just some of the constraints are going to be what we can actually take on with our staff. So we're prioritizing our upcoming activities really with a view to where can we get big early successes that can be pointed to in the science plan.
And I wanted to ask you on that science action agenda, just as a piece of information, we're in Puget Sound right in the middle of our, well, not quite in the middle, we're probably in the first 20% of a second cycle of our science work plan. And I could put your folk, whoever would be the appropriate people to put in touch with the people we've charged with getting that redone and see what lessons maybe could be helpful to you. And then a question for the ISB. I personally would have an interest in hearing probably at our January meeting about how this science steering committee is being put together, how they're being chosen, how we're hopefully avoiding representational membership on that board, and then also the science action agenda and how that's coming together. So that's something I think we would probably like to have a briefing about.
Actually, we would really appreciate that, particularly with the science action agenda, with a time frame that we would like to see that put together in order for it to be useful. In 2014, it's going to be a challenge. So yeah, for us to come and have a discussion on that. Also, it's an opportunity for people in the public to comment. One thing we will say, it will be a very open process, of course. We really want this to be representative of the science community and the managers and what the policymakers, the decision makers are actually going to be tasked with. So if you recall, I think I've said to both bodies in the past, there's been a lot of thought going on around certain programs on these issues. What are the really big science questions? What do we have to do? And we're just planning on building on these major initiatives and then doing a synthesis to see where are the gaps, what are we missing. If there are overlapping functions, then you will make sure that there's efficiencies considered amongst that. But we're certainly building on people like IEP have been putting in a huge amount of effort in really thinking through from a very fundamental level about what they need to support their program. Any other thoughts? But yeah, please, January, we look forward to that.